Napoleon Bonaparte, Triumphant Rise and Tragic Fall. Napoleon Bonaparte, a French emperor ruling from 1804 to 1815, who was able to conquer the majority of Europe, and was considered one of the smartest and most effective rulers ever. He had many military and imperial triumphs like the Battle of Austerlitz, and tragedies like the Battle of Waterloo, and him being exiled to the island of St. Helena. Napoleon had a major impact on the Empire of France and Europe economically, also improving government by influencing liberalism. Initially, Napoleon was born into Corsican nobility, but his family was not wealthy. He started education at an all-boys school and entered the French military at 10 years old. He was the only boy there who did not come from wealth and spoke Italian. By 1785, Napoleon was already the second lieutenant fighting for independence of Corsica. Napoleon rapidly was able to gain a higher ranking in the military and later crowned himself emperor. Napoleon later became associated with Augustin Robespierre and his brother Maximilien Robespierre, the military leader. The brothers were later executed, and Napoleon was put under house arrest for being associated with them. This almost destroyed his military career, but was able to be appointed to commander of the army as a reward for stopping an uprising of a new power in 1786. He then met his wife, Josephine, and they married. By 1799, he was the first consul and worked to create a European empire under his dictatorship. He was able to conquer most of Europe using unique and very smart tactics. He studied the tactics of Alexander the Great, another phenomenous military leader from ancient Greece who conquered an astonishing amount of the Eastern world and rose the largest empire of his time. Napoleon's first wife, Josephine, was not able to bear children, so he remarried to Marie Louise, the daughter of the Emperor of Austria, and had one son, Napoleon II. Napoleon created the Napoleonic Code, which was also known as the Civil Code of France. It forbade birth privileges, allowed freedom of religion, and gave government jobs to the most qualified. Napoleon continued conquering in battle against the Austrians, Russian forces, and more. In 1804, Napoleon named himself emperor and ruled as emperor until 1815. During his reign, he endured multiple tremendous tragedies and triumphs. Throughout Napoleon's entire reign over France, they were involved in the Napoleonic Wars, which was multiple major conflicts with other European nations. In October 1805, Napoleon engaged in the Battle of Trafalgar, which is considered one of his tragedies. His entire fleet was demolished by the British. Despite this unfortunate loss, later the same year Napoleon achieved one of his greatest triumphs in the Battle of Austerlitz, also known as the Battle of Three Emperors. His army alone defeated both the Austrian and Russian armies. This victory caused Austria to make peace with France and caused the fall of the Holy Roman Empire. As Emperor of France, Napoleon made major reforms for the government and the empire. Napoleon worked to stabilize the French economy, improve education, strengthen the army, and influence equality. Napoleon believed in liberalism for his empire. One of his most important and effective reforms was the Napoleonic Code. It was used as the basis of laws for France and spread around the world. To improve the economy, he built roads and sewer systems. He helped Jews and Protestants out of ghettos and made life more livable for them. He wanted to have equality throughout all religions. In 1807, after the Battle of Friedland, where Napoleon defeated the Russians, he made a peace treaty with Tilsit. Napoleon continued to rule as a great emperor, but then came into a predicament in 1812 during the Russian campaign. The Tsar refused to be part of the continental blockade, and it was ruining the economy. Evidently, tensions rose. Napoleon decided to invade Russia on June 24th of 1812. He had assembled one of the largest armies ever. When the Russians retreated from battle, they burned the city's remains, leaving no shelter. Napoleon's army suffered extensively due to lack of resources. They were frustrated with Napoleon and blamed him for belittling his army as hundreds of thousands of men died. In 1814, Napoleon abdicates as emperor and was sent into exile to the island of Elba. 1 year later, Napoleon escaped Elba and marched towards Paris with an army. On June 1st, 1815, Napoleon was once again named emperor and he promised a less dictatorial rule. June 18th, Napoleon led his army into the Battle of Waterloo, ultimately his worst tragedy. This battle marked the final defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte and the end of his French dominance. Napoleon's troops were brutally defeated in the battle by the British and the Prussians. Napoleon was blamed for poor tactics and decisions, also appointing inadequate commanders to battle. Resulting from the battle, Napoleon once again abdicated and was exiled to the island of St. Helena, where he died. Napoleon Bonaparte, along with many triumphs and tragedies, has huge short and long-term impacts on France and the rest of the world. Immediate effects of Napoleon's rule was how much the economy and the lives of people improved. Also, he changed the government to a military dictatorship. Napoleon made many reforms to the French Empire when he became emperor. He made the government much more efficient by centralizing it. He made military advancement based solely on merit. Napoleon also made major improvements to the education system. He realized how important education was and made it much more available to the middle class more than ever. Napoleon believed public education is most important and everything depends on it. He wanted to rebuild the economy by getting out of debt. He built roads and canals and sold his Louisiana territory to the United States in 1803. Napoleon also gave more freedom and rights to the people. He influenced equality and liberalism. Napoleon provided more jobs for his people that were usually exclusive to nobles. He also allowed the peasants to keep their lands they earned in battle. For the most part, the people of France very much liked Napoleon. He was welcomed with a parade when he first arrived from Elba. Napoleon always wanted the best for his empire. Despite his short effects, Napoleon made a tremendous long-term effect nationally with his empire. First, Napoleon created the Napoleonic Code, which is still used as a basis for many laws today. The Napoleonic Code was like a civil code, developed set of laws that dealt with personal rights, property laws, family affairs, and allowed religious freedom and more. The Napoleonic Code was not 100% positive. It gave little rights to women and men power over the families. It heavily influenced patriarchy, which is still present in some societies today. These laws were applied to all territories that Napoleon ruled, which happened to be most of Europe. Evidently, his laws spread throughout the world. Napoleon, to this day, is still known as one of the most intelligent and strongest military leaders. His legacy is still present to this day. He conquered an astonishing amount of land and spread the French Empire widely throughout Europe. Napoleon was very focused on expanding Europe and established nationalism. He and his armies would travel all over Europe and spread their ideas as the Napoleonic Code. The long-lasting unity of Europe is also derived from Napoleon. He conquered most of Europe and unified it into one territory. It is still very unified today, and Napoleon is considered the father of the modern Europe world. Napoleon Bonaparte, a French emperor ruling from 1804 to 1815 who was able to conquer the majority of Europe and was considered one of the smartest and most effective rulers ever. He had many military and imperial triumphs like the Battle of Austerlitz and tragedies like the Battle of Waterloo, and him being exiled to the island of St. Helena. Napoleon had a major impact on the Empire of France and Europe economically, also improving the government by influencing liberalism. Napoleon immensely improved France by creating the Napoleonic Code that is still used today. Napoleon is known as the father of the modern France. He unified France using tactics that we still reflect upon today. He has left behind a major legacy of being a military genius and a great emperor. Without Napoleon's ideas, our civil code today would be much different. Ours, along with many other societies, base our civil code off of Napoleon's civil code. During his rule, he endured many triumphs, such as the Battle of Austerlitz, perhaps his most important triumph, where he defeated both the British and the Russians. Napoleon also endured terrible tragedies, such as the Battle of Waterloo, that ended his rule and sent him into exile, where he evidently died, but his legacy still lives on today.